According to Wikipedia, Robert Leroy Johnson, born May 8, 1911, died August 16, 1938, was an American blues musician and songwriter. His landmark recordings in 1936 and 1937 display a combination of singing, guitar skills, and songwriting talent that has influenced later generations of musicians. He is now recognized as a master of the blues, particularly the Delta blues style. As a traveling performer who played mostly on street corners and juke joints and Saturday night dances, Johnson had little commercial success or public recognition in his lifetime. He participated in only 2 recording sessions, one in San Antonio in 1936 and one in Dallas in 1937, that produced 29 distinct songs with 13 surviving alternate takes, recorded by famed Country Music Hall of Fame producer Don Law. These songs, recorded solo and improvised studios, were the totality of his recorded output. Most were released as 10-inch 78 RPM singles from 1937 to 1938, with a few released after his death. Other than these recordings, very little was known of him during his life outside of the small musical circuit in the Mississippi Delta, where he spent most of his life. Much of his story has been reconstructed after his death by researchers. Johnson's poorly documented life and death have given rise to much legend. The one most closely associated with his life is that he sold his soul to the devil at a local crossroads to achieve musical success. His music had a small but influential following during his life, and in the 2 decades after his death, in late 1938, John Hammond sought him out for a concert at Carnegie Hall, from spirituals to swing, only to discover that Johnson had died. Brunswick Records, which owned the original recordings, was bought by Columbia Records, where Hammond was employed. Musicologist Alan Lomax went to Mississippi in 1941 to record Johnson, also not knowing of his death. Law, who by then worked for Columbia Records, assembled a collection of Johnson's recordings titled King of the Delta Blues Singers that was released by Columbia in 1961. It is widely credited with finally bringing Johnson's work to a wider audience. The album would become influential, especially on the British blues movement. Eric Clapton has called Johnson the most important blues singer that ever lived. Musicians such as Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, and Robert Plant have cited both Johnson's lyrics and musicianship as key influences on their own work. Many of Johnson's songs have been covered over the years, becoming hits for other artists, and his guitar licks and lyrics have been borrowed by many later musicians. Johnson died on August 16, 1938, at the age of 27, near Greenwood, Mississippi, of unknown causes. Johnson's death was not reported publicly. Almost 30 years later, Gail Dean Wardlow, a Mississippi-based musicologist researching Johnson's life, found Johnson's death certificate, which listed only the date and location, with no official cause of death. No formal autopsy had been done, and instead a pro forma examination was done to file the death certificate, and no immediate cause of death was determined. It is likely he had congenital syphilis, and it was suspected later by medical professionals that this may have been a contributing factor in his death. However, 30 years of local oral tradition had, like the rest of his life story, built a legend which has filled in the gaps in the scant historical record. It is often said that Robert Johnson was the first member of the 27 Club.